So how many of you went to the hardware hacking village over there? How many of you have enjoyed your badges and enjoyed all the speaker and staff badges? So Krs is here to give a talk about how she went from not knowing how any of this works to being awesome at it and designing this all on her own. And on top of that, we're going to talk, well, she's going to talk about, not we, I'm a little drunk. She's going to talk about a bunch of other projects and cheer on.
All right. Thank you, guys. Obviously, you now know who I am and what I'm here to talk about. So that ruins my first couple of slides there.
Thanks, Dana Graham.
So for anybody that didn't hear him, my name is Krs, and I'm a member of the Null Space Labs, which is a hackerspace in downtown LA. I designed this year's speaker and staff badges. There's a picture of it doing a really cool 3D cube, kind of blurry. So how all this started for me was back last year at DEF CON. It was the first time I was even introduced to soldering. Had no idea what it was, didn't know anything about electronics. Picked up a little digital voltmeter from Fry's. Didn't know what a voltmeter at the time was either. I just liked the display. And I learned enough about electronics that during DEF CON to go ahead and hack my badge. All I did was attach some LEDs from, coincidentally, a Disneyland toy. And I just attached them around the outside of the badge and used the aluminum faceplate as a conductor to light up the LEDs. So that was pretty cool. Some of the things that I've also done is one of my first and largest projects that I worked on was Lady Ada's Zox boxes. I actually ended up building 5 of them because some crazy person decided to buy them in bulk and then have me solder all of them. So this is where I got most of my my soldering experience was doing these. This is also something that I've worked on, which was just Mitch Altman's trippy RGB LED. I don't know if you guys are noticing a pattern here. I like LEDs. And as I said before, I'm a member of Null Space Labs. We're a hackerspace in downtown Los Angeles. We're also running the hardware hacking village, bringing in all of our equipment for everybody, doing both the human and speaker badges. We're free for everybody to come in and show up on Tuesdays. This is when we have our anybody's welcome days. Other than that, you should check the wiki for when we're there. This is a picture of Arco doing the breathalyzer badges for last year's DEF CON. So this is also something that we've been doing. We have a history of building badges. We have a lot of different equipment at NSL. We have a lot of really nice stuff like CNC machines, a lot of nice soldering irons and stuff, and some lasers. This one is a 40-watt laser. We like to set fire and burn holes and stuff. But we're not all work and no play. We like to have fun every once in a while. Here we have Enzo demonstrating his super long straw hack. And as I said before, we're not all work and no play. We do go ahead and let loose sometimes, and sometimes we'll throw a party every once in a while, and those are pretty neat. We have some cool people show up. We've had our experience of some furries and some pirates, and we also have the New Year's Eve, which we just started this year. We'll have annually. That'll be our New Year's Eve party that we'll have each year. You should also check out our sister hackerspace, 23B, located in the nice gay and lesbian community of Anaheim. Fullerton, I'm sorry, it's on the border. We've worked on a lot of projects at NSL. This is our Welcome to NSL beginner surface mount project. It's the Cylon. This is This one has 3 speeds for the LEDs. Also has 2 different brightness levels. Also has a POV mode with text. This is an example of the POV mode. We taped it to a fan and took a picture of it. It took a couple tries to get this picture because for some reason the Cylon just wouldn't stay taped to the fan. So I'm sure you can imagine what happened. We ended up trying to hide behind some desks and chairs and stuff each time we tried. But you know, and for some reason, the designer insisted on using a chip with no leads, no legs for the beginner surface mount project. So we have high expectations. This is just another picture of the POV setting, some text that we have in as a default. This was one of our first group build projects. This is Proxmark 3. It is an RFID clone and simulator tool, pictured here with our awesome antenna maker. We kind of set the bar high with this one because nobody's actually made any of these, including the person that created it. Not actually ever been made. So we didn't have any pictures or reference notes or any type of forums that we could go to for help. Kind of all on our own, but you know, that's what we wanted to do. And the only one that we know of that's actually being used is by Virus in Northern California. And I don't think he's actually using it as an RFID reader. So this is our Cylon 2. This was an upgrade to the Cylon 1. It's got 30 LEDs instead of the typical 9. We also put some buttons on it so you can play some small video games like Pong or something, you know, take everybody back to the 1970s except for with less resolution. It was also designed using Charlie plexing, and that just basically means that there's 30 LEDs and 5 pins, which is pretty awesome. If you guys want any more information on what Charlie plexing is, we have a ton of information on it on our wiki. Picture of the badges being made. This is our Analogic, which is our version of the logic analyzer using the design references by Cypress. And for some reason, like I said, as before, the designer is not really happy using a chip that has legs. So for the next version, he'll upgrade to this. And again, noting that this design was also for beginners. This is our Kraken, which is just our USB AVR programmer that was based off of a USB ASB. And all of these projects are available as kits, except for the Proxmark, in the Hardware Hacking Village. So if you guys are interested in building any of these or learning more about them, we actually have them for sale as kits. And now I'll go ahead and talk more about the badge. So for my first solo project, all on my own, designing and creating boards, I decided to build a surface mount version of the Evo Mad Scientist Labs PEGI, which is just a pegboard, an LED pegboard. And the reason why I got this idea is because we happened to have one at Nullspace, which unfortunately was broken during one of our parties. So we decided to go ahead and so I decided to build a smaller one for this year's badges. And we figured out right at the beginning that in order to keep it small enough that it can be worn, we were going to have to make it multiple layers because there's no way that all of the components and all of the LEDs and everything would fit on the front of it and have it still be small enough to wear. The badges themselves at this point are actually one of the smallest size of LEDs. They're 6 by 3 millimeters. They're quite small. So I don't think we could go much smaller and still solder them by hand. But during the first design, I went ahead and used blind and buried vias. Unfortunately, it was going to cost $2,000 to have some sample boards made. So not even all of the boards, just some sample ones. So that was a little bit out of our price range. So we decided to scratch the blind and buried vias and have to do through-hole vias. And I acknowledge the fact that the people who created this picture don't know how to spell hole. And as you can see, the blind and buried vias are just vias that go in between the layers instead of connecting all of the layers and going through the whole board. Like I said, as I had to redesign the whole board from scratch in order to go ahead and fit in the completely through-hole vias, because it was going to take a lot more space on the board, and I was going to have to move components around in order to fit around those. So we sent them in. We sent them to Malaysia to get built with a 1-week turnaround time. And 2 weeks later, they showed up after being sent all around the globe, and including the recently earthquake ravaged Japan. Not quite sure why they were sent to Japan, but I guess they wanted to check out some of the damage. So once they arrived, we started to go ahead and put on the total 8,100 LEDs by hand. We unfortunately don't have a pick and place up and running, so we had to manually put all of these on. And then somebody put all of their LEDs on backwards. So they had to, so it ended up being 8,424 LEDs that were put on. That person was me. So out of the many boards that I built, I ended up building my particular one with all my LEDs backwards. That was really fun to go ahead and fix. And we finished all of this at about 7 p.m. yesterday. Here's just a picture of some of them being hot plated. We use this method because it was going to be a lot faster than soldering them all by hand, although it did take some time to put them all on there. That way they could all just be heated up evenly and melted all together. Yeah, and we learned the lesson to not tell people to just do the best you can when they're helping, because then the boards won't work. And you may recognize the hotel bathroom sink, as we were trying to fix those errors during registration this morning. Some of the LEDs not working, but that's what happens when you have free labor. So through my whole experience, through my whole learning experience, I've started teaching at Nullspace. And anytime people come and show up, like I said, we usually have them build the Cylon, as you guys saw earlier. And so I try to go ahead and teach people the way it works, and the electronics behind it, and so that they have a better understanding, and then that way they can teach people when they come back. And I actually have one up here so that you guys can see what it does. For those of you in the back, I'm not sure if you can see it because it is small, but it's got 3 speeds.
And you said that's what she said.
And then the POV mode, which we have the text, maybe not visible, but an effort. So I teach people how to build those, and this guy was quite happy with his build. I find electronics pretty exciting, but apparently he found them even more exciting. And yeah, so anybody have any questions? Yes.
What's your background before this?
Absolutely nothing. I don't know if you guys. I don't.
Nirvana?
No, I worked in retail before this. I don't know if you guys read the bio on the program, but I grew up in the Valley and usually spent my time at malls and movies and all of that stuff. I had no idea what electronics was, what soldering was, even what DEF CON was until just last year. So all of the stuff that I've been able to do and work on has been within, less than a year.
How did you get introduced to Null Space and DEF CON and everything from the mall?
I was introduced to it. I was introduced to a person, a friend of mine, and he goes to DEF CON each year, and so I was kind of interested in what it was. I heard that there was some lock picking going on. I heard about the hardware hacking village, and I knew some people that had gone before, coincidentally, that were going to be there. So I figured, why not? And I just spent the whole time in the hardware hacking village, just learning and just watching other people make other hacks on their badges, and got to kind of pick people's brains about what was going on and what everybody was doing, and I was pretty excited. I ended up coming out. I haven't actually really had a bad accident with a soldering iron, and I've seen lots of those happen. And that's when I ran into the people at Null Space Labs. They had the BAC, the breathalyzer badge, the BAC badge that they had done and put together, and that was really popular. And as the picture with the Enzo straw, I don't know if you could have seen, but we were wearing some of them, one of them then, and testing them out. And DEF CON's a really great place to test those out. Anything else? Anybody? Come on. Yes.
Project.
A bigger version of the badge. I want to see how big I can get it.
Really? Like a wall?
We'll see. We'll see. As big as I can get it. Yes.
On the badge with Charlie plexing, so you can do 5 pins to 30 LEDs, 6 pins to X plus Y or whatever it is. If you're doing a bigger version of our badge, can you do more LEDs with that CPU, or do you need a bigger CPU with more pins or multiple CPUs?
I can do it. I can do it on the pins, on using the chips that we have, because the way that this badge is set up is it's got the main chip, which is an ATmega 328, and then it's connected to 2 shift registers and 2 LED drivers. So I'm actually not using all of these pins, but it wasn't small enough to all fit on 1 shift register and 1 LED driver.
So you can chain more shift registers if you want.
Yeah, I can, using these existing chips, go all the way up to 625 LEDs. So it's a 25 by 25.
Is that without adding?
That's
more
without-
components? Well, besides LEDs.
That's without adding more components. Well, I would have to then add the corresponding transistors and resistors and all the stuff that would be needed for the actual rows of LEDs themselves, but I wouldn't have to add any more chips or any other components like that. So it can be twice as big, almost. Yes?
How many of these LEDs are actually on in any instant? Is it all of them, or just some of them when it's...
We can put on all of them.
Oh.
Yeah,
now
all of
there's
them.
a power issue.
Yeah.
You turn them all on if you want.
Mhm.
And if they aren't just on for like 1,000th of a second and move on to the next one, they can actually turn them all on.
Yeah, using the shift registers and LED drivers, yes.
one thing that Kristen mentioned is that these actually do dithering via the rate at which the LED flashes. So if you look at when the box goes, you'll see the back of the cube is actually lighter. So you can do some pretty advanced 3D shit with just basic LEDs.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. You can play Snake too if you're quick enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
wait. One thing I want to point out, because everyone keeps asking me, that thing is not a cock.
I haven't gotten that question yet, actually. So maybe people are just a little shy to come up and ask me if there's a cock on my badge, but there's not. And not to mention that it would be a cock with some pretty odd, some growths on it for that shape. So I would really hope that it's not.
I don't want that thing reversing.
Anybody else? All right.
Did you copy the Peggy exactly and simply miniaturize everything, doing part substitutions, or did you make modifications? And what were those if you did?
It was a little bit of both. Being that it was my first board, designing and laying it out all by myself, I did cheat a little bit and go off of the Peggy schematic, but because of the fact that we were making a surface mount version of it, we needed to find different parts, and because we wanted to make it smaller, we needed to find like the transistors, for instance, on here are dual PNP transistors, so that means that there's one component takes the place of two. So we were able to downsize the overall size for that component as well. And also the way that the schematic is available for the Peggy is not in a format where you can just upload it to Eagle. So it's just a PDF that, I mean, I had to lay it all out anyway. So some of the wiring and things like that, I did go off of and use as a guide, and then I did go ahead and make modifications to different components and wire up the LED drivers and shift registers a little differently. But so it's a little bit of both. Did you have a question?
How did you learn the programming part of it?
That's an excellent question. I haven't. I am learning some of the programming stuff, but a lot of that is done by other people that have more programming experience at NSL. So I was able to go and work with them on what was put in the badges and what codes were available and would fit. But I'm still learning the programming aspect of it, so I wouldn't be able to explain to you confidently how that all worked. Sorry. Okay, anybody else? Really? That's all? It's pretty awesome looking. That's all the questions.
I heard there were some issues getting the batteries.
I figured somebody might ask that question. And yes, there was a lot of debate on which batteries to use and how to power it up. Quite a long debate involving several people. And each person had a different opinion as to which battery was going to be better, and we went back and forth. We ended up using, for most of them, 2450s, because that's just what happened to be ordered. So the actual proper battery wasn't even ordered. So and it works for the most part. But then some of them, most of the 2450s that were ordered, we got at a discount, and unfortunately they just didn't work that well. So then we ended up having to stack two 2032s in order to get the same amperage and volts and everything. So the batteries was definitely a learning experience. Anybody else? Yes.
So is yours the only purple badge?
Mine is the only pink purple badge. And that's just because I got to choose my color. We made these, all the speaker badges, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but they're all blue. We tried to make those pretty uniform. And of course, we made the staff badges red. So those are pretty uniform colors and colors that are used. We wanted to make sure that people would be able to identify who was who on the badges, even though when it scrolls, it tells you. but you may not be reading it or paying attention. You may just be looking at the fact that it's blinking at you, which is just fine too.
So pink and purple means designer.
Yes, yeah. Pink, purple means designer.
So if they're, for both staff and speakers, why do they all say speaker?
That's an excellent question. I think that maybe Datagram should answer that one.
Look. First of all, fuck off. Second of all, they go, should I say anything? I go, yeah, sure, put speaker on it, so that the speakers can take it home and be like, I was a speaker, not just like, I have a badge. What now?
So why did you
I'm speaking right now. I'm on tape. We're good.
And he's not going into as much detail as there really was, because he decided to be very critical on the text size of the text on the badge that was printed. So he saw several revisions that just said speaker, but didn't make it known to me that it needed to be changed. So he had the overall approval on the text on the badge.
Thank you. That's all you
All right, we have time for one more question. Anybody?
No? Nobody? I'm off the hook already?
What's your favorite color?
Pink and purple. Yeah.
How much more difficult is it to do multi-layer?
Well, it depends on whether or not you're doing blind and buried vias or through-hole vias. Because having the blind and buried vias makes it slightly easier. I mean, a 4-layer board is naturally complex because you're having to wire things on multiple layers, and so you're not just seeing front and back. You're also not able to make a prototype board as easily, because even with a CNC machine that we have at Null Space, it still is only able to do 2 sides. So that's another reason why we had to wait 2 weeks to even test the board, because we couldn't make one ourselves. But if you have the blind and buried vias, it makes it a little bit easier, because you can place components on the front and back pretty much wherever you want to. But when you have to design it with the through-hole vias, you have to place all of the components on either side around your wiring. So it's a lot more. It just takes a lot more time. Is that all? All right. I guess that's it.
Coming up next in a few minutes will be the Building the DEF CON Network talk with Mac and David Bryan. So if you'd like to see that, just stay tuned. Thanks.
Which is funny.
Oh, and one more thing. Remember that all the stuff she talked about is available in the Hardware Hacking Village. So if you'd like that, chase Krs over there and ask about the kits.
Hot back. Wine. My batteries ran out right at the end. It's perfect.